So, what book?
So today we're going to be talking about Indians on Vacation by Canadian author Thomas King. This is a book about two characters, Mimi and Bird, short for Blackbird. Both are native Canadian, and they are, as the title might dictate, on vacation. And they are looking for a package that was taken by a relative of theirs way back. And in this package, it sort of had different items that held meaning for the family. So it's kind of like a family history all in a package. And this thing disappeared. So they're on the hunt for this. But they're both retired. Mimi is an artist. Bird is a former journalist. And they spend most of the book in a city called Prague in the Czech Republic. And about 1,000 times during the course of the book, a chapter or a section in a chapter will begin with, "So we're in Prague." And it always becomes a thing after a while, because it's clear that Mimi loves traveling and Bird does not. And Bird is always the one who's like, "So we're in Prague," and it's almost like you can hear his eyes rolling.
Yeah.
So it's a travelogue in a sense. They also spend time in Budapest and Amsterdam, like as flashbacks. But ultimately, it's a story about, well, a lot of things. The package, trying to find your history within your family, because often that's hidden and it takes a lot of searching. The power of story within family as well. And it touches on Native issues as well, which is important. But it doesn't dwell on them. I like the idea that it just by touching lightly on a lot of different areas, it sort of leaves it with the reader. It doesn't like beat you over the head like some books do. So I liked the way that was dealt with. So I'd highly recommend it. It was a great book.
So, with the characters, did you find, like, through it, did you, like, relate to them in any way? Like, could you see, like, their journey from start to finish? Because I imagine, like, going after, like, your family package and stuff, that's a pretty big thing. Right?
Yeah, totally.
Like, that would mean a lot to me. Like, for example, right here, I mean, this is my grandpa's camera case from like the 50s.
Right.
So
right.
like when I was able to get my hands on it, I was really happy. So I can imagine, having to hunt something like that down.
Totally.
Be able to connect in a certain way.
And
so were you able to like identify a journey and connect with it, or at least like
Absolutely.
See it?
A lot. Number one, my wife and I, we travel a lot, so we've been to Prague, we've been to Amsterdam, we've been to Budapest, we've been to a lot of the places that they go, so it was very interesting for me to read about places that I've been.
Yeah.
And regarding the package where you've got all these important things for a family, we see whose mother was it? I believe it was Bird's mother, who likes to tell family stories, right? If you got grandparents, they love to tell the stories and the family stories, right?
They really do.
So I think since we've all got that, there's a touchstone there that we can say, oh yeah, my aunt so-and-so, she was, that kind of thing. Where else was I going with that? The other thing that they said, because bit of a spoiler as they're looking for the package, one of the people that Bird meets, who may or may not be real, says, well, why don't you create your own package? And they actually start to do that, because a family's history can begin whenever you want it to be, that kind of thing, right? And just
That's kind of
the power of the story is really important, because especially from a Native tradition, right? That oral tradition passed down, from generation to generation to generation. Stories created the culture. And so when Canada and, well, indeed all of North America was colonized, here we have people that have no stories of them on the land. So stories really anchor a culture, I think.
Yeah. So you mentioned it briefly goes into some native issues and stuff like that. How did that, like, because you mentioned it doesn't go far into it, but how did it make you feel? Like, did you learn anything, or did you like did it mention something you go, hey, I might go research into that more, or
Right.
hey, that's kind of interesting? Is there anything like that that
I
kind of
think
had you questioning?
the overall vibe of the book, I found, which is why I think it works really, really well as a travelogue, is you find Mimi and Bird in a culture that is not their own, and they're trying to find their feet. They don't know, how to speak Czech. They don't know, all that kind of thing. And I was struck with the fact that this is how Native people must feel in Canada, like all the time, because their culture is being evaporated and forced out, and they are living on their own land, but surrounded by a culture that is not their own. And what I find that exciting about travel, and then suddenly it was like, oh man, that's really dark and oppressive now. So that's probably what struck me the most.
So at the end of the book, like when you closed it, was there anything instantly? What was your first thought? Like, there's something immediately you took away after reading like the last couple words and closing it? Like, how did it like end? Like, don't obviously spoil
Right,
it. But, like,
exactly.
In your mind, was there good closure to it? Did you end it and go, okay, that was a good ending, and walk away from it? Like,
I think there was. It did have a decent story arc. It doesn't tie everything up, but I don't particularly like it when that happens in a book. It's a little too neat for my tastes. And there are questions that remain to be answered. So I liked it. By the time I hit the end, I liked the idea of the characters in it. There's other characters, how we all walk around with our own sort of demons that, oppress us all the time. Well, Bird has those, just like all authors. And Mimi, his wife, has actually named them for him. So it's funny hearing those demons, those voices in your head, given names and characteristics, and this voice is always going to be at you for this, and this other voice is going to be at you for another thing, which doesn't seem like it would be funny, but it is in this book.
I could see that, yeah.
And considering it's like under 200 pages, it's a pretty short read. It covers a lot of ground in a short amount of time.
So lastly, would you recommend this book for students? Do you think there's anything over, like, an adult like you reading it? Do you think anything different would be taken from it if somebody like my age were to pick this up and read it?
Yeah, I would recommend it. I'd probably save it to like 11 and 12 as opposed to, grade 9 or 10 kind of thing. There's some sexual innuendo stuff. And I think you're...
You need
11
to be able to understand.
Yeah, and you're just a little bit more mature to deal with some of the issues that are talked about there, just because of lived experience kind of thing. But yeah, I would totally recommend for seniors.
Well, great. Well, that's it.
Perfect. Thanks so much for talking to me.
Yeah, no, that was sweet.